Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. I thought as we approach Halloween it might be fun to have picked out the maybe a half dozen of my 123 stories, short stories in my new book, Soloists. Short stories of introverts and outsiders facing a dilemma that are scary. But scary for adults. No ghosts, no witches, but legitimately scary, it seems to me, to many adults. They would be, I think so. Anyway, so the first one is called Black First, Then Red. Reggie wanted a promotion. No, he needed a promotion. He was burned out on being a beat cop, and although police pay was high in the San Francisco Bay Area, rent was higher still. Reggie's mentor advised, there always are openings in the bomb squad, and mainly just sit around. There aren't that many bombs to dismantle. Take the course. Reggie did and was taught that bomb dismantling is less complicated than it might seem. Mainly you just have to first cut the black wire that connects to the detonator and only then the red wire. Reggie applied for the next opening in the bomb squad and to his surprise, he was hired over people with experience. Maybe I did really well in the interview, he thought. Indeed, in Reggie's 2 months on the job, there were no bombs to dismantle. The squad just did simulations. Find the detonator, cut the black wire, then the red one, easy peasy. Then, off duty on a Saturday night, Reggie took his kids to a concert. A row ahead, from a backpack underneath a seat, he heard ticking. Reggie used his foot to slide the backpack toward him. The ticking got louder. He pulled the backpack's zipper to see inside. It was a bomb, and it was easy to find its detonator. Then he saw that the 2 wires were purple and orange. Anyway, that story is called Black First, Then Red. The next story might be appropriate for Halloween for adults. You might want to either play this recording or get my book, Soloists, and read the stories aloud. Anyway, this one's called A Driver. I can't believe I did it. After all, lots of people lose their dad, have an overbearing boss, and yes, even have an erection problem without deliberately crashing into a random car in the next lane. But I did. Of course, I'm not defending it, but I want you to know why I did it. I was driving home from work steaming about how my boss yelled at me for making a mistake. Yeah, it was a $1,000 mistake. I left out a zero. I typed 300 instead of 3,000. Shit happens. But he said, one more time and you're out of here. Then I thought about what was coming up. A date. Last week was the first time we were, intimate, and I couldn't get it up. And now she's making me dinner. The pressure. What happened next should have been no big deal. Someone tailgated me. If I wasn't already so worked up, I would have just moved to the next lane and let him pass. But no, idiot me slammed on my brakes, hoping he'd rear-end me so I could collect from his insurance. But he had fast reflexes and didn't hit me. He tailgated me even closer. I got red in the face, shaking actually, and I know it's nuts, but I steered into the car next to me, an old lady driving a new Toyota. I'm writing to you from a mental hospital. It won't help. That's just what my lawyer got me instead of jail. But truth is, after I did that, I knew I'd never do that crazy shit again. I hope. Anyway, that story's called The Driver. The next story that's kind of scary is called COVID's Conclusion. The virus kept mutating until everyone died out. Everyone died, and because the virus no longer had a host, it died out. All that were left were bacilli. Over millions of years, they did their Darwinian thing, and eventually there was a man, well, sort of a man. He was able to reproduce autologously, and a baby was born. Taking care of a baby was a pain, and he was tempted to kill it, but decided to wait. It grew, the man talked to it, and soon it talked back. Together they invented fire and the wheel, and built a home that didn't blow down in the wind. They noticed that plants grew from seeds. They sampled myriad leaves and fruit, and planted the seeds from the tastiest plants. They grew to depend on each other and care about each other, what we call love. For a long time, they never met any other creatures except a dog who sidled up. They chose to live together simply, unambitiously. They didn't know to miss the internet, pop culture, nor Cuisinarts. Anyway, that story is called COVID's Conclusion. This one is really scary because I actually ran the story by a CIA operative who said this is the kind of story that actually keeps them up at night. I call this Affirmative Actions. March 15, 2017. Kevin was diagnosed with incipient sociopathy. September 13, 2019. Kevin wasn't selected as president of his high school's math club. Furious, he turned over his desk. At home, he drew a caricature of the winner, splattered it with red paint, and hid it in his journal, which he kept inside his bed's box spring. He had cut a slit with an X-Acto knife and Velcroed it closed. March 15, 2023. Despite his 4.0 GPA and having been published 3 times in the American Journal of Bioweaponry as an undergraduate, a record, he was not selected as a commencement speaker. He chose to not attend the graduation ceremony. Rather, in the middle of the night, on the Live and Excel sign that welcomes students to the molecular biology building, with blood red spray paint, he covered the V so it read, Lie and Excel. 4 o'clock p.m., May 21, 2035. The chair of the bioweapons department told Kevin that the year's tenure slot went to someone else. Kevin exploded, insisting, "I am infinitely more qualified." The chair responded, "As you know, Kevin, unfortunately it's up or out. If when you're up for tenure you don't get it, you need to leave. You can stay until June." 4:01 p.m. the next minute. Kevin removed the most virulent and airborne communicable bioweapon from his lab's freezer, put it into the irradiator to create mutated versions, and inoculated 200 mice, 50 each, with one of the 4 mutations that under electron microscopy and flow cytometry seem most likely to cause death. The next day was the incubation period. The day after that, May 23rd, he cultured the mutation that killed the most mice, 48 of 50. He filled 3 tiny vials with that, enough to infect dozens of people, cut open the seams of his wallet's inner lining and sealed it with glue that allowed the seam to be easily opened. Of course, he had put those 3 vials into the lining of the wallet. He drove to the furthest parking lot in JFK Airport in New York City. He got on the shuttle bus, put on an N95 mask that inside had a second, even more protective filter, opened his wallet, and surreptitiously opened 1 vial. By the time the bus arrived at the international terminal, the bus full of people headed all over the globe had breathed a fatal dose with its 1-day incubation period. He bought a ticket to Beijing, which stopped in L.A. He duplicated the process at L.A. Airport and then at Beijing Airport. May 24th. In his hotel room in Beijing, he took pleasure in watching President Chelsea Clinton on TV urging calm. Anyway, that story is called Affirmative Actions. That's pretty scary to me. For Halloween, maybe appropriate. The next such story is, Should I Kill Him? On the desert island, parrots, macaws, and toucans chirped. The peace was broken by a shriek, so I wandered into the jungle toward it. There, snickering as he strutted away, wielding a bloody machete, was one of the island's few inhabitants. There probably are fewer than 10 inhabitants, yet I had never seen him before. I edged closer to see a toucan lying on the ground, its foot chopped off, suffering. Quietly I followed the man, and he slaughtered another bird that had stopped to rest. He swaggered on, stopped along a stream, and chopped a frog in half. I was too scared to confront him, but had to keep following him. He strode along the stream, and when it widened into a river, a boy was bending over, fixing a leak in his canoe. The man crept toward the boy, machete raised. What should I do? I too had a machete, although I had never used it on anything but thatch, and the last thing I thought I'd ever use it for was to hurt a person. But the man would probably try to maim or even kill the boy. Or maybe he wouldn't. Or maybe I could reason with him. Or should I fight it out with him? Or would that make me too likely to get killed, and then both the boy and I would suffer? I thought of all the people that could have killed Hitler, could have killed Stalin, could have killed Putin, for example, their close-by lieutenants. One shot to the head and millions of people would have been saved from suffering and death. On the other hand, it feels cosmically wrong to kill. So, like those lieutenants, paralyzed by indecisiveness and fear, I just stood there. So that story is Should I Kill Him? The next story from my book Soloists, among the few that are scary but are perhaps appropriate for adults at Halloween. This one's called Sensitivity Training. As part of Dirk's parole agreement, he was given a job as a mail carrier and was required to undergo gender sensitivity training. Dirk got a dangerous route, including a notorious 7-story housing project. One day, he had a small package for an apartment at the top floor. He rang the bell and said, "Package, U.S. mail." On the other side of the door, a man yelled, "Leave it!" Dirk said, "You have to sign for it." The door cracked open, whereupon a woman screamed from inside. Through the crack, he could see her tied up. The man pointed a gun at Dirk and ordered him in. Dirk recognized the equipment for making crack cocaine. He thought about how the sensitivity trainer had made headway with him, so, gently, Dirk asked the man, "If your mother saw this, what would she think of you?" "Shut up!" "Do you have a daughter, a sister? What would she think?" "I said, shut up!" Dirk looked at the man compassionately and said, "You look tired, really tired. Is this all really worth it, really?" Dirk saw the man's face soften just a bit. "I can get you a fresh start. Let her go. I'll promise not to tell the cops, and I'll try to get you a job at the post office. The pay's great. You're outside in the fresh air. You get your exercise, and everyone loves the mail carrier. What do you think, really?" "The gun makes you say whatever bullshit." Dirk also had learned, in that sensitivity training, the power of silence, so he didn't respond. He just continued to look caringly at the man. "You'd really help me get a job at the post office?" "I swear I'll do everything I can. I will have saved your life and this young woman's." Again, silence. Finally, the man whispered, "There are other girls, too." More silence. Then he took a step toward the woman. She looked at him with new hope. He stared at her and untied her. She ran out. Dirk asked, "Want your package?" "Nah, it's drugs." The man put down the gun. Dirk shook the man's hand, and they walked out together. As soon as they parted, Dirk called 911. Anyway, that story is called Sensitivity Training. The next story is called It's All About the Power. First, a prefatory note. Having taught in the public schools, I learned that the conventional wisdom about bullies isn't always true. They sometimes have irrationally high self-esteem, not a veneer of high self-esteem. They really think they're great. They're bullies because they get off on the power and feel they can get away with it or suffer just minor reprisal. The following short story is based on the true story of a 7th grader. Speaking in the first person. "I elbowed him in the face. Why not? There's no referee, no free throws for a foul. Plus, I love scaring kids. They don't mess with me." The kid I elbowed said, "You're a bully." I loved that he said that. It gave me an excuse to bust him up. I kept pounding his face and almost got him unconscious, but the security guards pulled me off him and dragged me to the school social worker's office. She was a typical stupid nicey-nicey. She said something like, "You must be hurting to feel such anger. That's what low self-esteem will do. I know you don't want to be mean." I laughed in her face. She's clueless. I showed her my self-esteem is just fine. I love the power. I went right at her and almost got her, but I guess the security guards heard her screaming. They can't hold me for long. That story is called It's All About the Power. I think scary for adults, potentially for Halloween. The next story is called Silent Scream. Kate stood at the podium in the auditorium-sized classroom. She still bore vestiges of her Sarah Lawrence days. She usually wore black, used an officious New England tone even though she was from Indiana, and to her lament, she still smoked. Although a can-do person, ciggies, as she called them, had been her Waterloo. Even at age 63, Kate still exuded the fire. To prod her students into anger and activism, her lectures were like a revival preacher's exhortations. To add to her power, she had mastered techniques such as what she dubbed the 1-second bore. That is, as she lectured, she'd bore her eyes into the eyes of a student on the far left, and after a second, move on to bore her eyes into the adjacent student. When she reached the far right, she'd reverse field. When the students finished a Kate course, many, even some science majors, became activists. Despite Kate's age, it was the last thing her students expected. In the middle of a sentence, the left side of her jaw dropped, and then she did. Kate had a massive stroke, which put her in a wheelchair. More troubling to Kate than her paralysis was the aphasia. She had lost her ability to speak. But Kate didn't lose her ability to react. In fact, she channeled her lack of speech into more vigorous reactions. Shunning her upbringing and peer culture, which venerated restraint, she decided to show what she felt, unfiltered by gentility's gauze. For example, when Kate saw an attractive person, she held eye contact and smiled, sometimes seductively. When she thought someone was bullshitting, she'd roll her eyes. Once, when she saw someone she thought was acting badly, she wheeled her chair up close, raised her fist, and spat. But Kate's most common facial expression was sadness. Yes, because of her limitations, but also because her so-called friends rarely called, let alone visited. That was true even of Kate's mother, Poppy, who at age 87 and still in good health, was tired of helping Kate. Poppy thought, I don't have much more good time left myself. I don't want to waste it helping Kate cook and clean. So Poppy said, Kate, dear, atop your mobility issues, your arthritis in your hands and shoulders, make it so challenging to cook, clean, even bathe yourself. It's time, dear. Let's at least tour a retirement community. Kate hated the idea, but to appease her mother, acceded. When the salesperson showed the TV room, Kate saw a row of wheelchairs, with some of the residents having nodded off. Kate, silent screamed. Anyway, that story is called Silent Scream. Indeed scary to, I think, almost any adult, especially if we're getting older. The next story is called, quote, Hire the Best, end quote. Infused with liquid courage, I pulled out the button that I had been too scared to wear in public. Hire the best. I thought, I'm lonely. If I wear this button, it'll be a screen. Today, most people will hate that button because it implies I value merit over diversity. But the rare person might be friend material. So except at work, I wore the button everywhere. The usual response from passers-by was silence, looking away, or pursed lips and eyes steeled forward. But finally, Lily, a Japanese-American woman, said, I like your button. I said, why? She replied, because ultimately only merit net benefits humankind. I asked her out for coffee, and she agreed. I also use the hire the best button as bait. I walk leisurely so oncomers have enough time to process what hire the best means. I kill any passersby who criticizes it, like the guy who yelled, that's elitist, man! Why do I kill him? I'm not crazy. I want to make a difference. You see, anyone who uses criteria other than merit in hiring people makes the world worse. It hurts the products and services we buy, the leaders we elect, the people who get into top colleges and medical schools, and the researchers who could save our lives. I can't change the world, but I can rid the world of some of those termites eating away at humankind. I rotate where I walk, always on a busy commercial street so there's foot traffic, but no homeowners who could, if the cops asked, remember, let alone describe me. The button hooks them onto my line. My relaxed walk and pleasant expression reels them in a bit. Then I use FBI techniques to get them closer. I momentarily raise my eyebrows, tilt my head a bit, and smile. Those suggest that you're harmless, indeed that you like the person. The FBI uses those techniques to try to coerce a confession from suspects or to convince a foreign national to spy for the U.S. If those tactics get a person to stop, I'll start the conversation with a comment about the weather, or better, I'll praise something they're wearing or say their doggy's cute, whatever. I'll continue the pleasantry for a minute or two, but lest I seem too eager to befriend them, I'll then say that I need to leave. I feign uncomfortability and murmur, well, I'd be pleased to chat further, that is, if you'd like. I invite my mark to email or call me. Most don't, but enough do to make it worth my while. We agree to meet in a public place like a Starbucks. It takes time to get anybody comfortable enough with me to come on my boat. My cottage sits in an isolated cove, and I dock my boat there. For my disposal trips, to reassure the mark, I wear a Hawaiian shirt. I show caring by asking if they had trouble finding the place, showing empathy if they did, and praising them if they didn't. Once I get my mark on board, I offer a drink that's spiked with poison that disables the person in minutes. I had tried thallium and compound 1080, both of which are tasteless, odorless, and water-soluble, but both acted a bit too slowly, so I found something else. Lest you use it for a non-meritorious reason, I won't tell you what it is. I take a route out to sea that avoids anyone seeing us. I go out far enough that the body will be impossible to find. When the victim is dead, I put on gloves to avoid any of their DNA staying on me, dump the body into the ocean, wipe down the boat to eliminate any other DNA, fingerprints, or fabric fibers, put each glove and my clothes into a bag, add a rock so it'll sink, and a half-mile from the body, toss it into the sea. I put my fingerprints back on the boat so it looks like I'm the only one who's been on board. I put on an identical set of clothes, return home, and take a shower to be sure there are no traces. No one ever finds out. One time, a victim had told a friend about a guy she was planning to go boating with, and, along with other boat owners in the area, a detective interviewed me, and CSI types checked out my boat. But of course they never found a thing. I've now done it 14 times, and will continue doing it until I die. It's the most pro-social way I can live my life. Of course, I've hidden all that from Lily. Anyway, that story is called, quote, Hire the Best. And this, I think, is the last story. Again, these are all short stories from my book, Soloists, short stories of introverts and outsiders. Most of them aren't scary, but this is for Halloween, so I picked out the, 8 or so stories that are scary, I think. Anyway, this one's called Birth and Death. Yes, I had told Victoria that I wanted children, and at the time I did. I was infatuated with her, with the idea of having and raising a child, and maybe having someone to care for us in our old age. The desire to have kids was fueled by our friends who had them. They emphasized the positives, if only not to seem cold or like bad parents. And of course, our grandparents were salivating for grandkids. But then worries intruded. Bye-bye freedom, waking up in the middle of the night, fighting with the kid about homework. Will I even be a good parent? My job isn't that secure. Can we afford to have a baby? And what if our baby isn't normal? I decided not to say any of that to Vicky. I could just imagine her reaction. What? You said you wanted a baby. So do you want me to do now? Get an abortion? No. I could picture her screaming, then crying, then miserable throughout her pregnancy, and blaming me forever for spoiling her motherhood. My worry about an abnormal baby was justified. Lou Jr. was born with an APGAR score of 6, which predicts low IQ. The first time Vicky and I had sex after Lou was born, my erection wasn't as hard as usual. And over the next months, I became softer and softer until I couldn't have intercourse. In frustration, Victoria said, "You're doing this to punish me." Of course, that wasn't true, and I got so angry that I did something I thought I'd never do. I slapped her in the face, hard. Even in retrospect, I sort of feel she deserved it, but I do recognize that hitting a woman is strictly verboten. In the next months, we didn't even try to have sex, and our relationship declined further, in part because we didn't have sex available to balm life's problems. BALM, balm life's problems. And the top regular problems there was Lou, who was difficult, low IQ or not. He was what Victoria called fussy, which I thought was an understatement. And yes, once at 3 a.m. when Lou was already 6 months old and was up yelling half the night, and when I finally got back to bed exhausted after unsuccessfully trying to calm him, I actually said it. "You know, Vicky, Lou is a nightmare." Victoria seethed. "That hurts me more than even the slap, much more." A month later, Vicky expanded on a Lorena Bobbitt. She poisoned my dinner, and then with the help of my chainsaw, cut me up, threw me down the garbage disposal, and got away with it. She simply told the cops that I had gone for a walk and never returned. The investigation turned up nothing, so the cops assumed it was just another case of a spouse walking out, and they tossed the case into the cold case file. I'm writing to you from purgatory, hoping that Vicky feels at least ambivalent about what she did. And yes, there is one more very short story, and it's called An Unkind Cut. Ethan always had higher standards for people than could always be met. As a child, he always covered his test paper when classmates tried to copy his answers. A dermatologist now, when his patients would no-show or fail to do what was required, for example, put ointment on a wound, he'd fire the patient. On a first date, no matter how cute or flirtatious, if she was unintelligent, evil, or self-absorbed, he dropped her. His high standards frustrated him with normal humankind, and one time he went over the edge. A patient both no-showed and didn't change his bandage, so it got infected, and the patient blamed the doctor. "You didn't tell me I needed to do it every day." He had. So, when Ethan told the patient about the biopsy results, which was that the lesion was benign and could safely be ignored, Ethan lied and said it was a skin cancer that needed to be cut out. That's scary. In any event, those are the scariest stories from my new book, Soloists, available on Amazon, as they say. Most of the stories are not scary, but I thought I'd assemble this collection of roughly 8 what seemed to me to be scary stories for adults. No witches, no ghosts, but scary. Might be appropriate for you to play this recording for your Halloween party, or to read them aloud, or to get that book, Soloist, and read them aloud yourself. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.